the UNFCCC Regional Collaboration Center for Asia and the Pacific, and it is my pleasure to guide you through today's session. This series is co-organized by ESCAP, IUCN, Nature for Climate, the NDC Partnership, and the UNFCCC RCC Asia Pacific. This brings together policymakers, practitioners, and partners to explore how nature-based solutions can be integrated into climate and development strategies. So just a few housekeeping announcements before we begin. Please keep your camera off and mic muted unless you're taking the floor. Kindly use the chat box to post your questions, and we will try our best to respond to them. And lastly, the webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be uploaded on the webpage shortly. Now, before we begin, let me ask all of you to share with us where you're joining us from today. I think Lucas will kindly share the Mentimeter link here to respond to the question. Please use this to scan the code so we can track where you're joining us from. I'll give you all a few minutes to join on scan and respond to the question.
Dapat nung nasa bahay ako, saka ako nag-internet, di ba? Yun lang. Nakita ko si Isi umakit na sa hagdan.
Sorry, Lucas, for me, it's saying it's waiting for presenter. There's no question yet. So can we move on the Mentimeter to the question? Thank you very much. So now we should be able to see where everyone's joining from. Oh, it's already interesting to see such wide regional coverage. We're seeing people from Europe, we're seeing people from Australia and the Pacific, and of course, very wide regional coverage from Asia. I'll allow a few more moments for everyone to submit their answers. It's always exciting to see the wide diversity we have in our region and the wide regional coverage that we see. So in the fact that today's webinar will focus on blue carbon ecosystems, looking at mangroves to tidal marshes and seagrasses, and their unique potential to link climate mitigation, adaptation, biodiversity, and coastal resilience, it's super exciting to see that people are joining from countries where clearly blue carbon ecosystems have a great role and great importance in the climate action space. And today, as we see that countries are moving forward with submitting and implementing this third round of NDCs, or as they're being called, the NDCs 3.0, this is the time to scale up blue carbon action. So now let me ask you the second question, which is, how familiar are you with blue carbon for climate action? And of course, your responses will help us gauge the level of understanding and familiarity that you have with this important topic. Again, I'll give you a few moments to respond to this. So we're seeing a few responses come in, and I think it's going up and down a little bit, but we're seeing an average of over, half. So we're seeing 6.3 currently. It's moving down to 6.2. I'm really glad to see that the audience is largely familiar with this, although we understand that some of you may not be as experienced in this issue. And it's perfectly fine that some of you are not very experienced, because hopefully we'll aim to build that and enhance your understanding in today's webinar. So while you continue to answer this, without any further ado, I would like to begin our session today with an overview of the state of blue carbon ecosystems in Asia and the Pacific. And for this, I would like to invite Aneta Nikolova, who's the Environmental Affairs Officer from ESCAP. Aneta, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Juhi. I think at some point after my presentation, maybe we could do also a photo, because I see that we have a lot of participants, if our time allows. Okay, so let's go to the overview of our regional wealth in nature-based solutions, and especially ocean-based solutions. So if we could go to the first slide, please. The next one, yeah, the substantive. Yes, thank you very much. As you would see from our presentation, we actually did a very big study on the status of the ocean-based, nature-based solutions in our region, and they are a big wealth for our region. So in terms of carbon sequestration and also carbon capture, basically this is a potential we need to further explore. And about 30% of the global nature-based credits have been accredited to our region. Now, there is a potential here also for further enhancing, restoring, and rebuilding the ecosystems in our region. And so if we go to the next slide, you're going to see that our coastal ecosystems have a very strong, very high potential of carbon storage. This is based on the 230 megaton of carbon dioxide that could be stored in the mangroves, and 2% of the mangroves losses are in our region. But our mangroves are very, very rich on that. And there's not even a very consistent regional study. Often this is mostly estimates, but there is a strong team that is working on the blue carbon initiative. We have a speaker here who will be talking about the studies in Indonesia particularly. Next slide, please. This is a map that represents the wealth of the nature-based solutions and the different roles that is the ocean-based nature-based solutions are actually contributing to. Not only they're storing carbon dioxide, but they're supporting fisheries. They're also natural barrier to flooding, into sea rise. They're boosting biodiversity, supporting local communities. This is not to underestimate as well. And they're protecting our coastal areas. Next slide, please. I forgot to mention, we studied the mangroves, the coral reefs, and the seagrass. Seagrass is having a bigger potential, is one of the unstudied areas, right, in our region. So half of the global mangroves are in the coastal areas of our region, about 51%, 7.5 million hectares. And ecosystem services here are estimated to be 1.5 trillion annually. Also, the shrimp growth, right, the so-called semi-industrial production of shrimps is here, 75%. We have a big potential for carbon storage, and also 4 times greater than the forests. The potential of the blue carbon is 4 times greater than the forest cover. Next slide, please. We're going to show you here a little bit of the status, right? We have lost a lot of mangroves, but there is since that the study was published, the net loss is 358 megaton carbon, equivalent to 358 megaton carbon dioxide. But we have gained 314 megaton. So basically, Indonesia has experienced the highest losses, but we know, followed by Australia, Bangladesh is the lead in gaining. And we actually are seeing that since the study was published, there is actually an upheaval of commitments from the regional coastal countries to restore the mangroves, including Indonesia. Next slide, please. The coral reefs cover 77% of the world coral reefs in Asia Pacific. For those of you that are diving, maybe have a better idea of the wealth of diving sites and places where you could really enjoy nature at its pristine, still in our region, especially in the areas, the different archipelagos of the Philippines and also of the Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia as well. The ecosystem services here are valid to $7.1 trillion annually. So that is a wealth we need to cherish and actually replenish. We have lost during the last 15 years 1/4, but as I said, there is and then the loss is accelerating, but there is a commitment. Australia has been leading the commitment to restoration of the coral reefs there, and I think this is upheaval everywhere. Also, we have in the Pacific countries, right? PNG has established a blue carbon initiative as well. Next slide, please. Is it moving? The next slide, please. Okay. Yes, so on this map, you're going to see the coral reefs that are in the critical state, right? We have 60% of the reefs at risks from combined local and global pressures, and there's a need to put a little bit more effort on that. We will talk about the regional commitments after my presentation. My colleague Manuel will talk about this, what is being done in the region to deal with that crisis. Next slide, please. Can I ask the colleagues that are joining to mute themselves because we hear background noise? Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. The status of the seagrass cover, as I said, the seagrass is kind of not sufficiently explored. The Blue Carbon Initiative is doing studies in that, and it is very important. Quarter of the world seagrass meadows, which are enormous potential for carbon sequestration, is in Asia Pacific. They are 40 times more efficient to carbon storage than the land-based forests. And the carbon storage is estimated between 140 and 830 megaton carbon, right? Not carbon dioxide. Seagrass is also collectively, up in the region, the seagrass collectively managed to store about 7.6 gigaton carbon dioxide. So this is very, very important ecosystem service equal to 432 billion annually. US dollars. Next slide, please. Also, as this is a little bit more facts and data we have found, but talking about the endangered status of the seagrass, 80% are classified as under high danger, 9% are very high, and 2 are at critical risk. So we need to really look into this. And in addition to carbon sequestration, seagrass is also the home of a lot of marine animals and fishes and seals, etc. Next slide, please. So half of the global mangroves in the region, as I said, this is just to summarize, 3/4 of the global coral reefs are here, 1/4 of the global seagrass is here. There is a very big potential. There is also, in that study, we put kind of normative commitment to restoration of the mangroves, which is very important. In terms of US dollars and value of the nature-based solutions here, they're highly valuable. The mitigation efforts ranging from 650 million to 5 gigatons. A lot of the regional countries are already including marine ecosystems into their new NDC 3.0 calculations as well. and putting a value on it and highlighting the importance of restoration, of monitoring, mapping, modeling, and restoration efforts. Next slide, please. Key takeaways: increased investments in nature-based solutions and coastal ecosystems actually in our region are going to bring high benefits. And if we look at the just transition elements of it, the local communities need to be empowered. So whatever investments, what kind of projects are done, they need to include and empower local communities to be the guardians and the custodians in their role. They've been doing this for thousands of years. We need to reward that and further enhance their role. Next slide, please. And now I give the floor to Manuel. Sorry, this was the role of Bunny. But Manuel, my colleague Manuel is going to talk about regional cooperation efforts. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions. The full presentations will be actually uploaded later.
Thank you very much, Aneta. And I just have two slides because I just want to add to the information that you just provided very, very succinctly. And the first slide that I want to show you is on an initiative that was developed last year. So, and 2 years ago, our member states reinforced our mandate at ESCAP to work on ocean-based climate action. And as an outcome of the resolution that was passed 2 years ago, member states developed this initiative for regional cooperation on ocean-based climate action. And this initiative has 4 main pillars that I just won't go into the details, but I just want to give you a very broad overview on what these pillars are. The first one is on protecting and enhancing blue carbon ecosystems. What we're seeing in the region right now is that, first of all, there's a need to expand the protection of the territory of MPAs. That would be the first step. But also for those areas that are already protected, we see that there's a lack of management plans to adequately protect these ecosystems. And as Aneta had just presented, there is very high value in this blue ecosystem. So there's a critical need to protect them. Now, the second pillar of this initiative is on decarbonizing the shipping industry and maritime connectivity, which can include also issues such as shore power. And there's interesting initiatives, including the new IMO Zero Net strategy, and we want to work with member states also to support them in decarbonizing the industry. The third pillar is an ocean-based renewable energy, which includes, of course, floating solar and tidal energy production. And the fourth one is an ocean and climate resilience, which includes, of course, the issues related to sea level rise. So we do have a project with activities to be implemented towards 2027, and we will be hosting a dialogue next year, potentially aligned with the Ocean Impact Summit that will take place in Bali next year, likely in June. Yeah, so can we go to the next slide, please? And this will be my last. I just want to provide a very quick reflection on what took place just earlier in June. And I think that what we saw in the third UN Ocean Conference in Nice was very important. We are in the middle of a crisis of multilateralism, and we're discouraged with what's going on in different countries or by different member states. But we did see that regardless of the context, there was the political will and there was a very, very strong agreement among member states on these areas, the substantive issues that relate to the protection of the ocean. You can take a look at the political declaration that was adopted as an outcome of this conference. And if you pay attention at the language, you will see that the word climate appears 26 times in that document. So what was really clear is that there is no more discussion whether the climate is related to the ocean. We have all the science, but now we're evolving towards the action related to the science as an outcome of this connection between the ocean and climate change. And of course, in this context, we have an important area of work, which is on blue carbon ecosystems and their protection. So the statements of member states were very clear in this regard that we need more action in this sector. And I applaud those joining the meeting here today because it shows that you are committed to continue to work in this area. We saw key messages even from the co-host of the COP, Brazil, and the co-host of this conference, the Ocean Conference, on how COP30 will echo these messages, and we saw this with the Blue NDC Challenge. There's international developments, like I mentioned, IMO, net zero strategy. This is very important because it one way the strategy caps emissions, but also establishes pricing for GHG emissions in the shipping industry. So I think this is innovative. And finally, we cannot wrap up this session without having a reflection on the BB&J agreement. I think one of the key announcements was to see how we have 51 parties to the BB&J agreement, and this was ramped up during the conference. And we expect the remaining 10 signatories to deposit their instruments in New York during the General Assembly in September. So it is very likely that the BB&J agreement will enter into force in 2026, which is 120 days after the 60th instrumental ratification is deposited. And this will, of course, have key implications, including marine protected areas and the 30 by 30, the Kunming Montreal Biodiversity Framework. And with this, I will stop my presentation, but thank you, and I look forward to the discussion and the questions in the chat.
Thank you very much for that, Annetta. Thank you for setting the context, and Manuel for that important context in which we're discussing this webinar today. We now move on to question 3 in our Mentimeter, which Lucas has kindly shared on the screen already. So just asking in terms of what you consider most important for blue carbon for climate action. Lucas, next question. Thank you very much. So which of the following do you consider for mitigation, coastal protection for adaptation, biodiversity conservation, kind of understanding the consider most important. Right now, we're seeing carbon sequestration being the first, although the adaptation and mitigation, and I do agree. I think it's a false dichotomy to see whether mitigation or adaptation are more important in terms of one being prioritized over the other. It is important to see them both in harmony and together to see how people are perceiving this in terms of important benefits of blue carbon ecosystems. So while we see that changing in the screen, I would now like to move on to the next segment, which is looking at the international policy frameworks for blue carbon. This presentation will be delivered by Catherine Bimson, the Senior Program Officer for Water and Wetlands Nature-Based Solutions at the IUCN Asia Regional Office. Katie, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Julie. Can we go to the next slide, please? Next slide, perfect. So I'll be presenting on international policy frameworks for blue carbon ecosystems and how we can get blue carbon ecosystems better represented across policies. We have a short amount of time, so I'll just focus on a few of these key policies at the global level. But just to kind of repeat a bit what Annetta said and highlights that blue carbon ecosystems have a lot of potential for helping people. They're a really viable nature-based solution because not only do they help sequester carbon, but they also help coastal communities adapt to climate change. So we see a really big benefit in terms of flood protection, with mangroves providing over $65 billion in flood protection and safeguarding these coastal communities. But on top of that, if we restore blue carbon ecosystems, we also have huge benefits to biodiversity. With biodiversity comes benefits to fisheries, local livelihoods, and food security. So this is a perfect example of how one action can provide really multiple benefits or triple benefits to local communities, biodiversity, and global climate change policy. Next slide, please. So today I'll focus on 4 conventions and global agreements that we can really see blue carbons being well represented in, but they're by no means the only 3. So we'll talk largely about UNFCCC, of course, the Convention on Biological Diversity, the Sustainable Development Goals, and of course the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands of International Importance. So there's a lot of overlap between these three agreements and a lot of opportunity to make sure that what we're doing is harmonizing the work that we're doing under these four to avoid repetition and to make the best use of, as we know, the very limited funding that's available for nature conservation at the global level, but also at the national levels. I won't have time to go into all of it today, but my presentation is largely based on a publication on the International Policy Framework for Blue Carbon Ecosystems, which is available online and was developed by my colleagues at IUCN and Conservation International. Next slide, please. So looking, of course, at the UNFCCC, we see a huge opportunity, and I think we'll hear a bit later from countries on better integrating blue carbon into the NDCs. This can be done and must be done with other national focal points of other conventions to make sure we're improving our synergies. We are mirroring and echoing what other conventions are saying. So for example, when we're developing the next round of NDCs or NDCs 3.0, we can make sure that we're working with the leads who are responsible for the global biodiversity framework. So we see synergies a lot within these two kinds of global commitments. We see, of course, if we restore blue carbon ecosystems, we are supporting Goal A on recovery of species and ecosystems, and also, of course, Goal B on nature's contributions to people. There's also a number of targets that blue carbon ecosystems can support: spatial planning, restoration, 30 by 30, also targets on climate change and nature's contributions to people. So quite a strong alignment between these two. We can also see if we integrate nature better into the NDCs, we can see support to SDGs, most of the SDGs, but prominently SDG 1 on no poverty, clean water and sanitation, climate action, life below water, and many others. There's also an opportunity to use the Ramsar Convention. Most countries in the region are signatories to the convention. And in the NDCs, we can refer to knowledge that has already been developed on wetland inventories under the Ramsar Convention to help identify where exactly we should be working, restoring, managing, and conserving in the coastal areas to help meet these targets for adaptation and mitigation. Next slide, please. Looking at the CBD, as I've mentioned already, but under the Global Biodiversity Framework, there's really strong alignment and opportunities for focusing on blue carbon ecosystems. Again, targets on restoration, area-based management, climate change. And it's really important to make sure that what we're writing in our commitments and our commitments under the GBF are really aligned with the UNFCCC, the SDGs, and the Ramsar Convention, among others. Looking at the national level, looking at the NDCs that the countries have developed and are developing, it's really important to make sure we're including everyone in the discussion of how we're going to strengthen national biodiversity strategies at the national level. So not only the ministries of agriculture, but also not only the ministries of environment, but also agriculture and finance and others to make sure there's limited conflict and strong alignment there. We can also make sure that marine and coastal biodiversity targets specifically are in the NDCs. So not overlooking these very important ecosystems, even in countries where there's not a large coastline. And once again, when we're developing our NDCs, it can be building on inventories or Ramsar sites that are along coastal areas to help strengthen wetlands restoration and conservation in coastal areas. Next, please. So looking at the Ramsar Convention, the Ramsar Convention is really built around three pillars. The first is on designing, managing wetlands of international importance. So it's important to recognize the co-benefits that these ecosystems play and acknowledge the importance of designating future Ramsar sites. So countries are always designating new sites. So how do we make sure more of those are blue carbon ecosystems? These wetland inventories can also help to advance some of these targets. So if we have more wetlands along the coast designated as Ramsar sites, we're also helping to meet some of these targets under the CBD and SDGs. The second pillar of the convention really talks about the wise use of wetlands. So how do we make sure that we're managing wetlands in a way that benefits people and biodiversity? Of course, strongly linked with the Sustainable Development Goals and the targets of the GBF. And finally, it's really on international cooperation. So ecosystems don't stop at national boundaries. How can countries that share a coastline work together to designate sites and manage sites in a cooperative way to help promote the carbon sequestration within them? This is really important. It's so important, in fact, that during the 13th Ramsar COP, they had a resolution on promoting the conservation, restoration, and sustainable management of coastal blue carbon ecosystems. So I encourage you to have a look at that if you haven't yet. Next slide, please. So finally, on the Sustainable Development Goals, when countries are developing national frameworks and strategies for achieving the SDGs, we really see blue carbon ecosystems playing a big part in achieving some of these. So focusing on kind of 4 big ones, if we will, if we have strong, well-managed coastal ecosystems, we have reduced poverty, we have increased gender equality if it's done correctly. And of course, we're meeting our SDGs on climate action and life below water. Not only these SDGs, but there is a strong focus on these 4 when we talk about blue carbon ecosystems. And speaking of Ramsar resolutions, the Ramsar Convention also has a resolution on integrating wetland protection, conservation, restoration, and sustainable use into national SDG strategies. So this is a tool that can be used and help to support better representation of blue carbon ecosystems and wetlands into national strategies. So overall, it's really important to make sure that we understand the different opportunities to mainstream blue carbon ecosystems, and to acknowledge that just because blue carbon ecosystems are represented in one commitment or policy, it doesn't mean that we can't mirror that in other commitments. So there's a need to align these and make the best use of the funding and the energy that we have so that we're all moving in the right direction when it comes to blue carbon ecosystems. So I'll leave it there, and thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Katie. That was a very useful and very in-depth presentation on blue carbon ecosystems. I will again remind the speaker audience to mute themselves, please. We have some disturbance at the back. And I also saw someone say, please put your questions in the chat box and we will try to address them later. Now let's move on to exploring the finance landscape for blue carbon, and we're pleased to have Deo Gabinete, the regional manager at the NDC partnership, joining us today. Deo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Julie, and for the quick introduction, and of course, thank you very much for everyone who's participating in this webinar. So next slide, please. Next, please. Well, I won't be going through this a lot. I think my colleague Annetta and also Katie has already gone through substantively in terms of why blue carbon ecosystems matter, not just in terms of restoring biodiversity, but also now in terms of combating climate change. As everyone in this webinar here is already familiar with, blue carbon ecosystems such as mangroves, seagrasses, salt marshes play a pivotal role in climate mitigation, adaptation, and of course, also sustaining livelihoods. And integrating these ecosystems into the NDCs that many countries are now developing can enhance coastal protection and deliver the critical core benefits, including improved resilience and food security, and also promote local economic opportunities. Next, please. But despite this perceived importance and blue carbon ecosystems face substantial funding shortfalls, and which limits their conservation potential. The global biodiversity finance must increase at least 6-fold, with approximately $83 billion needed to specifically address coastal ecosystems challenges. And bridging this gap requires mobilizing blended finance and innovative financial instruments that attract private sector engagement and also further channel in public sector investment that's already there, many of which was mentioned by Katie earlier. Next, please. And data based on the requests that we have received for over the past 5 years also highlights the specific shortfall in terms of the finance-related request that is focused on blue carbon ecosystems. Of all the requests we've received, only 35% have received support. And the greatest gaps still remain in terms of developing bankable projects, resource mobilization, and conducting essential studies and analysis. Next slide, please. To address these gaps, the NDC Partnership and the Pewter Charitable Trust have developed the Blue Carbon Ecosystem Supplement to the Climate Investment Planning and Mobilization Framework that the NDC Partnership and GCF also co-developed together. And this supplement provides practical guidance for countries to finance and enhance their NDC commitments related to mangroves and other coastal ecosystems. Next slide, please. I won't be going through all of the steps and also guidance included there in the supplement. I mean, if you these slides will be shared with you as well, and you can scan the QR code and will lead you to the landing page of the supplementary guide for blue carbon ecosystems. But what I would just like to highlight a bit in terms of what are the essential elements of this in terms of investment planning in blue carbon ecosystems. So first and foremost is, of course, to collect detailed baseline data, which is very critical for creating tailored financial instruments. In Senegal, for example, in GIZ and support, they have mapped coastal ecosystems that would eventually guide financial planning. And other countries like Barbados, they've executed blue bond and debt for climate resilience swaps, channeling around $50 into marine conservation. There also needs to be clear policy and regulatory frameworks that would hopefully clearly define roles and responsibilities that would streamline actions. Examples of these include the Indonesia's M4CR and Lautra initiatives that clarify land tenure and carbon rights that hopefully could also improve the coordination at the ground level. And there's also the what do you call this? It's a regional initiative called PAMC, which aims to integrate coastal management and blue carbon strategy across East and Southeast Asia. Next, please. Other aspects related to investment planning into BCE includes strengthening internal government capacity that hopefully would further channel in public finances that will improve governance mechanisms within the country and strengthen enforcement, as well as provide this ecosystem that will allow community support by not depriving them of livelihoods, but actually enhancing their capacities to sustainably use these resources. An example of this would be Vietnam's integrated coastal management program, which strengthened the capacity to training better financial management in terms of the local communities that make use of this blue carbon ecosystems. Another essential aspect of investment planning into BCE would be ensuring that there is a stable and predictable policy. And this is really essential in terms of attracting long-term investor confidence. In Belize, they have restructured their debt through a blue bond, and which allowed them to commit significant resources into marine conservation and blue economy. Next, please. So drawing from all of this experience, what you can find in the supplementary guide there it allowed us to expand on what do you call this, applying the climate investment planning and mobilization framework that I have referred to earlier. And this one was developed together with the Green Climate Fund, and it offers step-by-step guidance in terms of upstream, especially in terms of upstream efforts like institutional strengthening, policy alignment, to downstream actions such as project preparation and investment restructuring. So the supplementary guide for BCE also follows this particular this framing in terms of investment planning and mobilization, but is very, of course, specific to blue carbon economy related investments. Next, please. The CIMPF, looking at it a bit more closely, it really provides a comprehensive guidance from the early stages, and such as institutional strengthening and policy alignment towards the actual project preparation, investment structuring. But it's also very cognizant that many countries and many even local governments probably would be at different stages of this investment planning and finance mobilization continuum. But what it does is it gives you, it allows you to take stock on what is already in place, see where gaps and where weaknesses are, and strengthen those, and ensure that when you are, let's say, preparing a project that's related to blue carbon economy, but you don't have certain policies in place that would uphold or make the project durable, not just in terms of financing, but also in terms of enforcement, then you may want to address those gaps as well, maybe in conjunction or maybe as an inclusion to the project that you are developing. But I won't be, again, apologies, we don't have enough time, but hopefully you'll at your own leisure be able to browse through the CIMPF and learn from it. And of course, if you need further conversation about the framework, we're also here to discuss this with you bilaterally. Next, please. And recognizing that the investment planning evolves, the framework and the supplementary guide will be regularly updated to, of course, incorporate feedback, consultation, feedback, and inputs from consultations, and including webinars such as this, and much more importantly, to incorporate practical experiences from where this supplementary guide has been utilized. You can visit the CIPMF tool, online tool, on that QR code there, and that will also lead you to the supplementary guide for blue carbon economy. Last slide, please. But thank you so much for listening, and I hope you got something out of it. And I now turn over to Bani for her presentation.
Thanks, Teho,
Gotcha.
for that insightful presentation. And, just moving back to we've looked at finance, and just moving back to the Mentimeter that we had looked at, people were looking at what the importance was between mitigation or adaptation in terms of blue carbon ecosystems. We will now have a presentation on blue carbon ecosystems for integrated mitigation and adaptation by Banashri Sinha, who's a climate action consultant at ESCAP, and she will also lead us through the panel discussion after that. Bani, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Juhi. Thank you so much. Good morning, participants. Maybe being the last speaker of this session, let me just try to connect a few dots through my presentation, because we have discussed most of the points that are related to this topic today. Next slide, please. To start with, in this slide, I'm trying to connect both the webinars, Webinar 1 and Webinar 2. For participants who were at Webinar 1, you heard Dr. Sandeep Sengupta from IUCN highlighted 4 sections as a guide for including nature in the NDCs. And in today's webinar, we kind of tried to focus more around the cross-cutting consideration, including how to maximize synergies between NDC targets and related policies and strategies, and enhance consistency and coherence between adaptation and mitigation. Next slide, please. Taking a step back, the Asia-Pacific region is particularly significant in the global blue carbon context, representing a globally important carbon sink, as you heard both from Anita and Manuel and other participants, the speakers. At the COP28 in Dubai, nature was a clear winner as negotiations and outcomes referenced the importance of biodiversity and nature-based solutions for mitigation and adaptation. This continued. In COP29, one of the outcomes that aligns well with today's webinar is the promising environment for blue carbon ecosystems and blue carbon markets. There is progress. The ability of measures such as coastal wetland restoration to address both climate action, enhancing co-benefits of climate action, and minimizing unintended consequences are there. Many examples, you have heard many examples from our valuable speakers today. One such example is that it is estimated that in India, mangroves protect 3.3 million people from flooding and USD 9 billion worth of property. Next slide, please. Let's try to take a quick dive into some of the NDCs by countries submitted by the countries from this region. Indonesia has been developing a blue carbon strategy framework under its National Medium-Term Development Plan for 2020-2024 with multiple agencies overseeing its implementation. We will hear more on this topic from our panelists shortly. For Fiji, it includes blue economy ambition in its NDC targets through enhanced ocean governance to not only achieve national ocean conservation, but also contribute towards enhancing the ocean as a carbon sink. Similarly, for Maldives, due to Maldives' heavy reliance on fossil fuels for energy and the high cost of transitioning to renewable energy, they have come up with a strategy, and we will hear shortly from our panelists on this topic. So for the Republic of Marshall Islands, in addition to an increase in solar energy update across the atolls, they are also exploring innovative technologies. Similarly, in Sri Lanka, soft solutions for shoreline management, such as mangrove restoration, has mitigation co-benefits and contributes to adaptation benefits. Next slide, please. National strategies for integrating blue carbon into NDCs and climate policies vary across the region. Just an example, in Samoa, the NDC is under review to consider blue carbon into NDCs. And the country has initiated the Mangrove Ecosystem for Climate Change Adaptation and Livelihood Program. In PNG, they had recently concluded their final consultation on blue carbon policy. In Bangladesh also, it recognizes the role of mangroves in the climate action, though not using the term blue carbon. Similarly, we have other examples from Cambodia and China. We have our speaker who will, in the panel session, will be presenting on the Pacific's perspective on what is being done. Next slide, please. But as we know, there is way more that need to be done, and our valuable speakers today had presented some of those. So where are the challenges that has been addressed, need to be addressed? For example, investment in nature-based solutions have primarily concentrated on terrestrial ecosystems like forests, leaving the critical coastal ecosystem of mangroves, seagrass, and coral somewhat overlooked. Despite their ecological and climate significance, blue carbon ecosystems remain poorly mapped and assessed across much of Asia Pacific. Socioeconomic valuation of blue carbon ecosystem services are even more fragmented, hampering effective policy development and conserving planning. So there is the opportunity. Where is the opportunity? The opportunity lies both as a challenge as an opportunity in integrating the blue carbon into the NDCs and try to address how can we integrate both mitigation and adaptation through this step. So it's time for the countries to start initiate their thinking and take a step in this regard. Now, we already had Manuel, our colleague from ESCAP, who presented a lot about the work that we have been doing, ESCAP has been doing. So ESCAP has been advocating for establishing a regional network of blue carbon experts and practitioners for strengthening regional cooperation to enhance the blue carbon ecosystems and their invaluable services for mitigation and adaptation efforts. With this, it's my honor now to introduce our panelists to this webinar. Next slide, please. Can I request Dr. Novi Suseyanto Adi to please switch on your camera? Dr. Novi Suseyanto Adi is a senior marine spatial ecologist, currently serving as head of the Socioeconomic Center at Indonesia's Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. His work bridges spatial science and ecology with extensive experience in satellite-based coastal ecosystem mapping, seagrass monitoring, and blue carbon assessment. Dr. Adi has contributed to national efforts integrating remote sensing and field study to support blue carbon strategies in marine policy and climate mitigation frameworks. Can I also request Ms. Yuthile Louis to please switch on your camera? Ms. Louis is the project coordinator for the Promoting Pacific Islands Nature-Based Solutions, a PIPIN project for SPRAY. With a strong background in environmental science and project coordination, she leads efforts to embed nature-based solutions international policies across Fiji, Tonga, and Vanuatu. Yuthile is currently the co-chair of the Nature-Based Solutions Working Group under the Pacific Islands Roundtable for Nature Conservation, where she provides strategic leadership in advancing NBS across the Pacific through technical dialogue, policy reform, and regional collaboration. Next, panelist, we have Ms. Jurwat Abdullah Nafis. Could I kindly request you to switch on your camera? Ms. Nafis is a program officer at the Climate Change Department of the Maldives Ministry of Tourism and Environment, specializing in NDC planning, implementation, and monitoring under the Paris Agreement. As a climate negotiator and one of the contributing authors of key reports such as NDCs 3 and the Maldives, she plays a vital role in shaping national policy. Over to you now, Dr. Novi. I understand, Dr. Novi, you are going to share with us Indonesia's pathways and policy innovations integrating blue carbon into climate commitments. The floor is yours, Dr. Novi. Could we have the next slide, please?
Thank you, Ms. Bani. Good morning from Indonesia, Jakarta. Thank you to UNESCAP for the kind invitations. It is an honor to join this esteemed group of participants. I appreciate the opportunity to contribute to today's discussions. And I look forward to sharing some insight with you later also. So let's begin with the presentations. Next, please. I will share with you two important documents regarding the climate change, where the blue carbon are currently accommodated. First is about our long-term strategy for low carbon and climate resilience until 2050, or LCRR. So this document already includes the mangrove as a part of the pollution sector. But for the inventory, for the carbon inventory, it still includes only mangrove biomass part. And as a part of the RED++, parties also mandated to develop forest, what is called as forest reference emission levels. And Indonesia has also developed this FREL for mangrove, for biomass, of course. And soil carbon is planned to be included, soil carbon for mangrove, is planned to be included in the next second NDC, or commonly termed as NDC 3.0 as well. So this reflects a gradual or a phased approach to integrating blue carbon more fully into climate policy. Next, please. The next documents that I would like to share and give like a general review is our NDC. So as you can see here, the evolution of Indonesia NDC from INDC, first NDC, updated, enhanced, and will be the second NDC, or NDC 3.0. And it is, in general, it is economy-wide NDCs. And for our next submissions this year, we plan to submit it by September or October this year. there has been some modifications, based on the decisions of the parties of the UNCCC. For example, now we are shifting of using the previously historical baseline method for determining baseline. So we are shifting to use baseline of the 2019 base year. Okay. And the good thing regarding the blue carbon, that there will be a new sector from that economy-wide sectors, the existing economy-wide sectors. And this is the marine sectors, driven mainly by my institution, Ministry of Marine and Fisheries. But it is currently planned not to be kind of absolute emission reduction target, but we are still working on it. We are still considering whether we will include like absolute emission reduction target or qualitative. Yeah, the current version is still qualitative. And then actually this sector is envisioned not only to include blue carbon, but other emission reduction target in marine sectors. For example, capture fisheries, aquaculture, and fish product processing. Yeah, processing. And yeah, currently, because we also considering NDC is kind of a living documents, it can be improved, it can be enhanced, it can be updated. Currently, we still plan to include only still seagrass blue carbon. Yeah. Next, please. Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay. Okay. So this is some descriptions about the condition of blue carbon ecosystems in Indonesia. And Anita has mentions in the previous presentations about the high rates of Indonesian mangrove degradations. Yeah, we are still facing it, but I would like to emphasize in using this slide that to be optimal, I mean the functions of blue carbon as a nature-based solutions, those blue carbon ecosystems should be healthy. Should be healthy. And yeah, this is some of the results that we have done for Indonesia. Yeah, this is the in the middle picture. It is kind of a source of pollution, source of degradations for seagrass in Indonesia. The different color of cycle shows different environmental drivers or pollution drivers. And here in the bottom picture on the left, it shows that some of the main islands, all main islands of Indonesia still experiences mangrove degradations in high rate. Yeah. So yeah, it is important because if we want to optimize or to mainstream blue carbon as a nature-based solutions, there are only limited actions. Yeah. Conserving, protecting, or rehabilitating. But those actions focus to preserve or to rehabilitate or to return the health of the ecosystems. Because blue carbon is like an ecological function, and it can only works or functions optimally if those ecosystems are healthy. Indonesia has only two blue carbon ecosystems, mangrove and seagrass. And for mangrove, we are the we are the largest mangrove globally. Next, please. Yeah, this is continuations of what I have mentioned earlier regarding the status of the degradations and the capability for blue carbon. This is an examples of works that we have already completed and some are still ongoing on research on blue carbon. On the left side, it shows that if we want to use mangrove as a blue carbon nature-based solutions, then protecting is more important than planting. As you can see here, this is like a simulation or extrapolations of the time series mangrove degradations converted to emissions, and both top and bottom graph, the blue and green, includes restoration or planting actions. But what can optimize the carbon stock is activities that includes protections in the middle, the yellow one. Yeah. So yeah, protecting contributes more to the carbon stock enhancement, yeah, than planting. The similar thing happening with seagrass on the left side, that for the yellow is like a simulation scenario if we preserve or we protect seagrass compared to planting. Yeah. Lastly, next please. Yeah, we, as mentioned by a previous speaker, that we have sufficient research on blue carbons. Actually, it is time, yeah, to turn from research to commitments or actions by using a mechanism allowed by Article 6 of Paris Agreement, which is a carbon incentive for carbon projects. But blue carbon is different from black carbon. Black carbon means like carbon coming from energy sector. Blue carbon involves environment. It involves or related to biodiversity. Yeah, and it relates to communities, local community living close to nearby to a blue carbon ecosystem. Indonesia is in the largest archipelagic states. We have more than 17,500,000 islands, and our blue carbon ecosystem, seagrass and mangroves, are located all, yeah, on those islands. Yeah, and the current carbon project still focus only on the carbon parameter, yeah, as shown by the top panel or graph or picture here. Okay, yeah, the existing available carbon project schemes don't really explicitly involve non-carbon benefits, yeah, in the form of social economic benefit or biodiversity benefits. Those co-benefits are very relevant to blue carbon project, yeah, because blue carbon is different from black carbon. For black carbon, the focus for mitigation action could only, for example, on the technology, yeah, low emission technology, or the efficiency of the production chains, yeah, to reduce the emissions of energy sector. But blue carbon is different. Blue carbon involves environment and also involves the socio-economic aspect. So yeah, to turn the blue carbon into really real actions, we also need to focus or consider the carbon project schemes that can accommodate co-benefits in addition to carbon parameters. We are still working on it. Yeah, and yes, we recommend multi-benefit accounting framework tailored to coastal ecosystems, supported by marine inclusive NDC architectures that I also mentioned earlier. Next, I think this is my last. Thank you very much for your for the opportunity and for your intentions. A good day. Thank you. Over to you, Ms. Bani.
Thank you so much, Dr. Novi, for your presentation, quite valuable, and for highlighting mainly the message that protecting is more important than planting, and that protecting contributes more to carbon stock than planting. And also for mentioning that in order to have optimal blue carbon benefits, it's important that they are healthy. Thank you so much for this presentation. We'll get back to you when we have opened the floor for the Q&A. Now, can I invite Ms. Yutale? I understand that today you are going to share the Pacific perspective from your work in some of the countries on NBS and blue carbon ecosystems. The floor is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bani, and good morning. And it's a pleasure to present also on this webinar today and amongst some very esteemed panelists as well. So we have heard quite extensively from the previous presentations, which have highlighted the vital role of blue carbon ecosystems. So I will be sharing a perspective from the Pacific and how our Pacific blue carbon ecosystems can play as nature-based solutions for climate actions. And I'll be highlighting some of SPREP's work, where I am from, and that's doing in advancing the Pacific leadership in blue carbon, NBS, and ecosystem-based approaches. And I've shared there just a QR code if you want to just browse and learn about what SPREP is. But next slide, please. So let's begin here by exploring why blue carbon really is such a powerful and relevant solution for Pacific Island countries. And first, we must recognize who we are. The Pacific region is made out of 24 Pacific countries and territories, and we're often seen as small island states, but we like to think of ourselves that we are the blue Pacific continent. We are large ocean states with vast marine territories that far exceed our land area. And our coastal ecosystems, our mangroves, seagrasses, and salt marshes really are central to how we live, we adapt, and how we sustain ourselves. And as we've heard before, they are some of the most powerful carbon sinks on the planet. And further to that, these ecosystems really are our first line of defense. They protect our homes, our food systems, they support our fisheries, and intrusion, erosion, and flooding. And like mentioned before, when we invest in restoring these coastal ecosystems, we're really investing in local resilience, food security, and economic alternatives that really are grounded in nature. And most importantly, protecting these systems really help countries contribute to the global goals, as we've heard before. So whether it's achieving our NDCs, aligning with the Paris Agreement, the SDGs, or the Global Biodiversity Framework. Next slide, please. So let's take a closer look now at why investing in nature-based solutions for coastal ecosystems is really just essential for the Pacific. So we've heard this mentioned. NBS really offers what we call a triple benefit. So when you protect mangrove forest, for example, you're really doing three things at once. You're removing carbon from the atmosphere, which is mitigation. You're buffering coastlines against storms and sea level rise, which is adaptation. And then you're also providing habitat for crabs, fish, birds, and that's biodiversity conservation. And also for the Pacific, that's strengthening food security. So it really is a investment that delivers multiple returns. So second, nature-based solution really also builds community resilience. And in the Pacific, our communities tend to all settle around the coastal areas, and we really do live right at the edge of the sea. So when our coastal ecosystems are healthy, they act like natural seawalls. They reduce flooding or stabilize soil and support fisheries that we rely on for our food and for our local livelihoods. And thirdly, nature-based solutions really are and can be cost-effective, and it's rooted in our way of life. unlike hard infrastructure, which oftentimes can be very expensive to implement, nature-based solutions can offer an option that is more cost-effective and can also be implemented by our local people, utilizing local and traditional knowledge. So in our Pacific cultures, very much like other cultures of other small island states, we've always really valued and protected the land and sea through our traditional conservation, or what we call like tapu rahui areas. We have seasonal harvests and bridge to reef stewardship. So really these traditional practices are powerful foundations for modern nature-based solutions approaches. And fourth point there, we've really heard before is that nature is our carbon ally. And when we have carbon assessments and data, coastal ecosystems like our mangroves and seagrasses really do store a lot more carbon per hectare than land-based or terrestrial forests. And last point, blue carbon and NBS is really now backed by major global frameworks, as we really have seen the IPCC, the UNFCCC, and even private sector climate finance coalitions. So what this means is that there's a growing international support, funding, and policy guidance that can really help the Pacific scale up nature-based solutions. Next slide, please. And then leading on from that, I just wanted to really give a quick snapshot, mainly what's happening across SPREP. And these are some of information on some of the SPREP-led projects that really bring nature-based solutions, including blue carbon from concept to action. So the
Sorry,
MacBlue project.
sorry, please coming in. Please could all of you who is not taking the floor kindly just keep yourself muted. Thank you. Over to you. And you have 2 minutes time to wrap up. Thank you.
Yeah. So we have here, I just wanted to probably focus on the MacBlue project. So this is implemented by SPREP and GIZ, and it's a flagship blue carbon initiative, mainly working in 4 countries in the Melanesian region of the Pacific. And really, it's one of the among the first to support full country scale mapping of seagrass and mangrove ecosystems. And a core activity for the MacBlue project is a blue carbon assessments, and which really has led to improved data quality. They've, I think, achieving tier 2 level data quality. So this really goes a long way to supporting governments, not only in developing their own natural capital inventories, designing targeted conservation, but it also contributes to more effective reporting and strengthening their mitigation and climate reporting. So the project also there is also supporting increasing capacities by developing national blue carbon policies, I think for 2 countries, and that's Vanuatu, and also supporting that PNG blue carbon policy. So, and then we have other projects there, the PIPIN project, PBAC Plus and BEAM, which are all contributing either through implementing NBS at community and country levels, supporting the strengthening of institutional frameworks within the countries, as well as providing and doing key assessment tools. We have their ESRAM, BioRap, and ESVOA. You can also scan that QR code to learn more information about that, just because we're really mindful of the time. And last slide, please. So lastly, I just really wanted to touch on those opportunities about incorporating blue carbon and NBS in the NDC reporting. So we've heard that earlier versions of sort of the Pacific NDCs have only either omitted or partially included coastal ecosystems, but this is changing. So as the Pacific countries are drafting their NDCs 3.0, this is really a major opportunity to bring our coastal and marine ecosystems into the national climate strategies, really not just as a background, but really as a core measurable solutions. We've seen mangroves and seagrasses, their carbon potential, and including them in our emission reduction targets, we can unlock high impact mitigation. They provide critical adaptation and resilience co-benefits. And what's really also powerful here is that they already align with local and traditional practices, and many of our communities manage marine areas through traditional conservation approaches like our tabu, our seasonal harvests, and customary rules. So, these really can formally recognize nature-based solutions in our NDC, turning tradition into something that's internationally recognized. And then we also have a lot of projects going on in the region, not only with SPREP, but with our other Pacific regional organizations that are really improving the data and providing more tools and assessments and providing a good technical foundations needed by the countries to, confidently integrate blue carbon and coastal NBS into their NDCs 3.0. And so I think on the last slide, I just wanted to end with the sentiment that, blue carbon is not just a technical opportunity, it can be something that's deeply strategic and help us meet our global goals. So thank you very much. And look forward to the discussions after. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you very much, Ms. Lee, and thank you for highlighting that it's an opportunity for the Pacific countries, and also about highlighting the need of data quality and how we can improve the governance structure, and about effective reporting. Sorry for having rushed to rush on this, but can I now invite Ms. Nafis? I understand you are going to share with us Maldives' experience in strengthening existing financing mechanism to maximize synergies between nature and climate financing. Could I kindly request you to stick to 8 minutes, please? Over to you.
Thank you, Barney. Good morning, everyone. Today, I will be presenting how the Maldives envisions the synergy between nature and climate finance within our third NDC, where we stand the steps ahead and how these align with our broader climate targets. Next slide, please. So for country context, the Maldives is one of the most low-lying nations in the world, making us highly vulnerable to sea level rise, flooding, coral bleaching events that directly impact our ecosystems, public health, livelihoods, and critical infrastructure. These challenges strain domestic resources and emphasize the need for scaled-up external financing. Our ocean habitats, mangroves, coral reefs, and seagrass beds protect our coastlines, support biodiversity, and support two key economic sectors, tourism and fisheries. Next slide, please. So from a legal and policy standpoint, the Maldives has taken significant steps to integrate nature-based solutions and climate finance into national frameworks. The Climate Emergency Act provides the legal foundation to implement climate policies. The National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan is currently
Sorry, could you please unmute yourself, Ms. Nafis? You are muted. Could you please?
How about now? Okay, right?
Hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So most importantly, our third NDC reflects the role of blue carbon ecosystems in both mitigation and adaptation, showcasing how environmental protection and climate resilience go hand in hand. Next slide, please. So a critical aspect of strategy involves strengthening financial mechanisms. This includes expanding existing sources such as domestic budgets, donor aid, and international climate funds, improving coordination between climate and biodiversity finance streams to reduce duplication and improve efficiency. developing context-specific instruments such as community-level grants for local resilience bonds to attract investment, blue carbon credits to explore valuation and market potential of our seagrasses and mangroves. Next slide, please. In 2020, we adopted the National Strategic Framework to mobilize international climate finance. It is currently being created to reflect the emerging challenges and opportunities. The framework aims to systematically access and manage climate finance, integrate financing into national development goals, ensure transparency and accountability in fund management. And it aligns with global mechanisms like the GCF, Adaptation Fund, and JEF. A key priority is promoting locally informed, cross-sectoral, and nature-based approaches, especially in vulnerable communities. Next slide, please. Currently, we have a pipeline of 22 climate-related projects, out of which 3 have been approved. These projects span multiple vulnerable sectors from coastal protection, freshwater security to ecosystem restoration and clean energy access. To advance the remaining projects, we are seeking stronger engagement from accredited entities, technical support to develop robust bankable proposals, the partnerships that bring in financial innovation and long-term sustainability. Next slide, please. So while our third NDC reflects the role of blue carbon ecosystems, much of this is still in its early stages, and I can't stress this enough. Most projects remain at local scale. They deliver high-impact community-level benefits. Beyond carbon sequestration, these ecosystems provide coastal protection, nurseries for marine life, and help improve water quality, all critical for the resilience of our coastal communities. We are actively exploring co-financing models that link biodiversity and climate benefits. For example, mangrove restoration contributes to both carbon sequestration and flood mitigation. Coral reef restoration supports climate adaptation and enhances our tourism economy. Integrated coastal zone management provides cross-sectoral benefits across agriculture, fisheries, and also infrastructure. Next slide, please. So now I'll shed some light on one of our coral reef restoration projects, Raspberry. So Raspberry was declared a marine protected area in 1995. The reef spans approximately 6 kilometers in length and lies at a depth of 2 to 10 meters. It's known for its high coral cover and biodiversity. Unfortunately, in August 2021, a large vessel ran aground on the outer edge of the reef, causing significant damage by grinding away and destroying the tops of the coral spurs. To address the damage, covering an area of 8,867 square meters, the Raspberry Restoration Project was initiated. In-water nurseries were established to grow corals for outplanting and reef restoration. The project also focuses on researching effective coral reef restoration techniques, developing sustainable nursery practices for ongoing and future efforts, and contributing to the recovery of live coral cover. Additionally, the initiative includes field testing of coral reef monitoring methods and evaluating the cost and feasibility of large-scale restoration. Next slide, please. Some of the innovative instruments we are exploring include blue bonds. These channel private capital into marine and coastal resilience, ecotourism levies, and coral reef insurance models such as parametric insurance to protect reefs post-bleaching events. Public-private partnerships to scale mangrove and reef conservation, continued engagement with GCF projects focused on nature-based adaptation. Next slide, please. So to enable long-term success, we aim to strengthen institutional coordination for finance flows, build technical capacity for finance readiness, mainstream nature-based solutions into all sectors, tourism, agriculture, infrastructure, among others. measure and report climate and biodiversity returns from investments. Next slide, please. So under the Enhancing National Development Through Environmentally Resilient Islands project, we enhance and adapt financing mechanisms to support ecosystem conservation, protection, and management with climate co-benefits. Natural capital accounting, mainstream environmental value into development planning is one of the objectives of this project. We are also developing a national carbon regulation under the Climate Emergency Act. This will define institutional structures for carbon-related projects, provide guidelines for engaging in carbon markets, including under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, lay out a carbon strategy and roadmap based on gap analysis and stakeholder consultations. Next slide, please. To scale impact regionally, we are working closely with other small island states through initiatives like the Coalition of Atoll Nations on Climate Change, KNCC. Recent peer learning focused on the national adaptation planning processes with a focus on nature-based solutions and food security, identifying how funders and development partners can better support small island states, building on ongoing peer support system among members. Next slide, please. So despite progress, we face several challenges: complex international funding procedures, limited technical capacity, high public debt, and fragmented finance. The small size of many projects makes them less attractive to large-scale investors. But we have learned that multi-stakeholder engagement is crucial when developing financing strategies, aligning financial mechanisms with national development priorities and NDCs increases effectiveness. Investing in capacity and simplifying access procedures is essential to scaling solutions. And with that, I will conclude my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nafis, for your presentation and within the context for highlighting the importance of strengthening institutional coordination for financial flows. It has been such a knowledgeable and valuable panel, and I don't think we have any time left to just have an open Q&A. But maybe we can take up one or two questions, if any, because I don't see any in the chat. So if there is any question that needs, just open up the floor for one question. Sorry, I don't see any hands raised, so maybe we can just over to you, Juhi.
Thanks a lot, Bani. I also see that Ms. Louis already responded on the meeting chat. Thank you very much for that. And thank you again to all our country speakers for sharing their rich experiences and for making this so engaging and insightful. I will now invite Julia Moroso-Garbin, the regional lead of UNFCCC RCC Asia Pacific, to deliver the closing remarks. Julie, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Julie. Can you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Thank you very much. And again, thank you everyone for your time. Allow me to deliver these closing remarks on behalf of the organizers of these very rich discussion on the blue carbon ecosystems as nature-based solution. I'm delivering this on behalf of the UNFCCC Regional Collaboration Center for Asia and the Pacific. And over the last 90 minutes, we have heard from leading experts, policymakers, and practitioners who are actively shaping the future of ocean-based climate action in our region through the conservation, restoration, and sustainable management of blue carbon ecosystems. And I'm really very happy to actually be part of these conversations. As we conclude this discussion, allow me to maybe share a key message that I got over these conversations. Blue carbon ecosystems are an essential yet underutilized component of climate action, particularly in the Asia-Pacific region. Many of you have already alluded that mangroves, seagrasses, and tidal marshes are vital carbon sinks and protect our coasts from storms and sea level rise. And for many countries in our region, as we heard from Indonesia, from the examples from the Pacific delivered by ESCAP and the Maldives, these ecosystems are not just environmental assets. They are lifelines for livelihoods, fisheries, and strategies for disaster risk reduction. While there is no formal definition of blue carbon under the UNFCCC process, countries are encouraged to draw on available scientific guidance, especially the ones coming from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, to include coastal wetlands in their national greenhouse gas inventories. It's also encouraging that countries are now concretely mentioning coastal marine ecosystems in preparing their NDC 3.0, not only as a mere background of national context, but as a clear, measurable solution with high impact for mitigation. It would be interesting to see more examples where countries would actually identify and quantify coastal wetland carbon sinks where data is available, include specific targets for the protection and restoration of mangroves and seagrass meadows, and of course, explore opportunities to integrate blue carbon into Article 6 cooperative approaches and nature-based climate finance. For national adaptation plans, we also see more countries including focus on ecosystem-based adaptation strategies that prioritize marine ecosystems for flood control and community resilience, and also community-led restoration programs, especially for coastal indigenous and local populations. And it's also very important to note, as we have seen in the presentations earlier, that it needs to be aligned with national biodiversity and disaster risk strategies to strengthen co-benefits. But of course, in order to move forward, we must address current gaps, and we've heard the gaps that are mentioned are in terms of data, inequality of data, the methodologies that are that exist at the moment, especially in terms of the potential of carbon removals, capacity and access to finance. And this is where regional partnerships, South-South cooperation, and technical assistance can really make a difference. Let us remember that Asia-Pacific region is home to some of the world's most extensive and diverse blue carbon ecosystems. And it's really also heartening to see that the leadership from the region is really apparent, and it goes to show that we are really moving towards protecting and restoring these ecosystems, not only for achieving the climate goal, but also essential for the resilience and prosperity of our region. At the UNFCCC RCC Asia and the Pacific, we affirm our commitment to support countries and stakeholders in developing and implementing their national climate strategies through the NDCs and the national adaptation plans. And we stand ready to facilitate technical support, regional coordination, and capacity building in line with the evolving needs of our countries in the region. In closing, allow me to thank our co-organizers, of course, the leadership of ESCAP, IUCN, Nature for Climate, and the NDC partnership for these, I think, a very good showcase of regional collaboration to deliver on this very important topic for the region. And to all our speakers and participants, thank you for your engagement and, of course, for lending your time. Over to you, Juhi.
Thank you very much, Julie. And again, apologies to our participants for not being able to have a very in-depth question and answer session in this round, but we will look forward to answering some of these questions in our upcoming webinar. We will have a webinar 3 coming shortly. Thank you again for joining us today, and you will receive an email from us soon. Keep a lookout on the same webpage. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
everyone.
very much.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.